Welcome to the Digital Dreaming Off the Good Arm podcast. It is your host, Oscar Lee, joined with my co-host, Sulman Haque. We are rocking the 49ers gear today, and I'm rocking my 13 for the first Pro Bowl quarterback in the last 21 years for the 49ers organization, ending a 21-year drought, Brock, Mr. Relevant Purdy. So let's just get right into it. So, Sulman, talk to me about what you think about the Pro Bowl selections and any obvious snubs for the Niners.
No, I think, all the guys you expected to make it made it. I forget, did Ayuk make it? He didn't
Nope.
make it, right? Yeah.
Nope.
So you could maybe say that was a slight snub.
Yep.
That one, maybe. But my God, the NFC is loaded at wide receiver, right? So it'd be hard for him to make it, I think. Given just how well balanced the 49ers are on offense, that if any guy was not going to make it, it was likely Ayuk. But everyone else, I think, uh, you know, they did good.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think ultimately when we're looking at it, I Ayuk had an all pro season. And but I think the problem is, you have these star established receivers like AJ Brown, CD Lamb, right? I would personally not include AJ. And if you're gonna take someone out, I would put Ayuk there. But outside of that, I mean, obviously, I mean, look, Kittle made it, Juice made it, Trent made it, Fred made it. Oh, one more omission. Dre Greenlaw. Greenlaw should have definitely been, as part
Yeah,
of this
it's
program.
kind of weird. I think they classified Greenlaw as a inside linebacker, but he plays outside linebacker, so it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's kind of
Um,
interesting because when you think about it, the inside and outside, the kind of dynamic, kind of like what we saw with Wilson Bowman, right? It's like I'm looking at it from the perspective of, okay, I look at Fred Warner and I don't want to say off ball, but he's really, really good in coverage, and he's really good. It's Greenlaw strikes me more as kind of like the Willis type, where like he goes in, and he makes the hits, and he tackles, whereas Fred Warner, I mean, I don't want to call him a safety, but he really is almost like a safety playing, the middle of the field.
I mean, he
And
played safety in college, right? So
exactly. So that's what makes he makes him so potent, because his ball skills are just off the charts, right? And kind of, and I think, yeah, and I mean, it really sucks because I really wanted Greenlaw to make it. I was really pulling for Ayuk to make it, but everything else considered, I mean, I'm really happy with the Pro Bowl, ballots, considerations. I'm happy that obviously Mr. Relevant, right? Not. And one more thing, Brock Purdy is the first Mr. Relevant to be named to a Pro Bowl. So I mean, this is huge across the board. I mean,
Purdy has defied all expectations, being Mr. Irrelevant. So
it's
he
incredible.
just keeps going.
Yeah, it's incredible. You're right. It's incredible to think that, you have Jimmy Trey, and just this number 262 pick overall just sitting in the wings last year. Everyone was talking about Jimmy or Trey. And then, like, when he gets the opportunity, it's like, oh my goodness. And Richard Sherman said on his podcast last week, there are guys like such as like you see Jake Browning, right? And others, who basically can ball. And essentially, just because they don't get the opportunity, that's why you don't know that until they actually get, kind of like what we saw with Kaepernick when Alex Smith went out. Booby, guest of the show, talked about that on his appearance. So sometimes it just takes an injury for these guys to get their opportunities. Kurt Warner, prime example, right? Tom Brady, another prime example, right? So I think I'm really happy with obviously with Brock, and it's like you said, defy expectations, and I'm excited for the future, for the now and the future.
100%, man. 100%.
100%. All right, let's talk about the playoffs. Let's talk about, kind of what's going to happen actually this week 18, and then we'll transition to playoffs because, the big debate. Steve Young was on KNBR. You probably heard the episode. He basically said he has an issue with Brock not playing the last regular season game. He said because then, the rest could release to rust, and that's been kind of like, a big debate amongst Niner faithful community. What is your take on kind of Kyle Shanahan saying Brock is the only one he's for sure going to rest, and I think probably Trent and obviously CMC, McCaffrey's going to be one of them.
I
What's your take on the whole rest versus rust thing?
No, I think rest is important, man. Like NFL's gone to 18 games now, right? 18 weeks. So it's important, right? Especially when you're playing 18 weeks. I think, Brock Purdy, again, he was coming off an elbow injury. He's probably got some fatigue going. He's got to rest, man. I think Shanahan's just like I don't know. I feel like Shanahan didn't go far enough. He should have said, hey, Brock's resting, CMC's resting, Debo's resting. We're resting the entire guys. Like the Rams came out and like we're resting half our offense, right? So
Yeah,
why the hell are the Niners playing anyone that's has even a individual contributor to the offense? Why are they playing those guys even on defense? Right? Like get Warner out, get Greenlaw, get all those guys out. Right? Let's not start these guys. I don't think rust is an issue. These guys need more rest. Right? I think I don't know. I mean, I didn't hear all of Steve Young's take on it, but I read the headlines, what he was saying, like, oh, Brock should play. He needs more game reps. I don't think he needs more game reps, man. One game is not going to change that against the Rams, like, practice squad. So I don't think that makes any
I'm
sense. It's the Rams practice squad.
Yes, sir. Cortez,
Hey, what's up, man? I'm going to be in strict opposition to that. You
really?
already know that. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I think that to begin with, I would do exactly the same thing they do in preseason. I'd let those guys have an opportunity to go out there and play a little bit of football, and then as soon as they're done, like let's say first quarter, second quarter maybe, I would pull them. I put all the backups in. Doesn't matter if we win or lose. We already got the number one seed locked up, and move on from there. I think that's a whole lot better than letting the guys sit, maybe get a little bit of rust for 2 3 weeks of not playing. I want to see him. I want to see him go out there and like maybe, or if it was me, if I was coaching, I would probably try to run a couple of things that we don't normally do, just to see if they're going to work. Things that we do only in practice, and then see if that works out. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But after the first quarter, I'm putting all my backups in, my guys who have busted all their rumps for the entire time that we've been through going through this season. Those second, third, and fourth string guys, and there are fourth strings in some of those places. Especially places like the line, especially running backs, receivers. I let those guys get some reps. Against the team that is playing their last game of the season. I let those guys go out there and get some reps, and they'll have some fun, and be able to show their families like this is what we work for. This is the reason why I'm still here. This is what I believe in, even if I am a backup. I go out there and do that. I wouldn't rest the starters until either halfway through the first quarter or let them get a quarter of play in, let their body stay seasoned. That type of thing. But I don't think they need that much rest, to be honest. There are guys that I would not. I would rest C-Mac.
Yeah, you got to rest that guy for sure.
Yeah,
I think him
I'd
and
rest
Purdy for
C-Mac.
sure. You got to rest maybe those two guys, just because Purdy
Yeah,
goes down, you're screwed.
I'd rest if I was gonna pick three guys to rest. I'd rest four guys. That's it. Everybody else is playing. I'd rest C-Mac. I'd rest Devo. I'd rest Purdy and I'd rest Ayuk. Everybody else, I'd have them playing. I'd pull my defense probably in the second quarter, and I've been in this position as a coach. Not so much as a player because when I'm out there, I want to play. But when I mean, Ali, you were at one of our games in Vegas, and you saw how I felt about that. I didn't like getting pulled. We're talking 200 yards, and two touchdowns. I still didn't like getting pulled. I was like, I want to keep going. It's like we're up 45. Why do you want to keep playing? We've got a whole quarter of football left. But
Well,
that's just the player in me.
well, no, but I think this is an interesting kind of debate. This is kind of why there's so much kind of contention and dissension around this topic, right? On one hand, you do want to, not keep the guys, the kind of, stagnant. You want to be able to give them, like you said, the reps and all that, right? But then on the other hand, you want to make sure that you limit the chances of injury. And also on that hand, you want to give these third or fourth stringers that opportunity, right? Because they're auditioning for 31 other teams, right? For example, number 14, Sam Darnold, right? Grant Cohn said on his podcast, like him or hate him, Grant's whatever. But I mean, he basically said Sam is basically at impasse, right? Basically, where he either can come back next year, they can bring him back, either on a cheap deal if he doesn't prove himself in this game against LA, or that he can basically ball out and then command a higher salary somewhere else, right? Because right now, I think Grant Cohn is in the camp. Him and his dad Lowell, they're basically saying that it's better off. The Niners are better off if they draft a backup quarterback. But I mean, I'm personally, I like what I saw from Sam against the Ravens. I mean, Sulman, you out of the game too. He constructed some drives here. He showed some
Yeah,
some
he showed a little bit for sure.
Hey, he went all the way down the field.
Yeah, he did.
right.
He did something that Purdy wasn't doing that game, right? So he showed something. I don't know how much of that was the Ravens are like, all right, it's Sam Darnold, we're gonna back off in coverage, let him do whatever. But I think it's worth having Darnold as a backup. But if he's gonna go get overpaid somewhere else, let him go get overpaid somewhere else, right? Like you can't you have a lot of cap issues already with all these paying positions, and you got to pay Ayuk coming up, you got to pay guys coming up. So you know, great to have a good backup quarterback like Darnold, but if you can draft a guy then and not have to pay Darnold, whatever, if he's gonna be like, making 15, 20 mils somewhere else, then that's what you got to do. But it just depends on
Suli, I'm
cost,
going to
right?
tell you what I think about that, man.
Let's
And
hear
I
it.
think you might agree. I think you might agree. If I'm Sam Darnold, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lobby to play the entire game. That's number one. The second thing is I'm going to make a 50-50 decision before we even get to the playoffs. If we win a Super Bowl, I'm staying. If we don't win a Super Bowl, but we were that close and all the other guys in the locker room are trying to stay, I'm staying too. If we win a Super Bowl and they come with a big money contract, then I'm going to go elsewhere. It's really only 50-50 either way you go. Like there isn't this, this grand question of should I go play football somewhere else? It's am I going to win playing football somewhere else? I don't think that Sam Darnold would be happy to go to Las Vegas and lose. I don't think that Sam Darnold would be happy to go to Atlanta and lose. I don't think that Las Vegas or Atlanta are even interested in that at that point. Especially Atlanta, having a young quarterback, especially Las Vegas having multiple options and being a very attractive market for seasoned players. I don't think the upside of Sam Darnold is as high without him going out and balling out this weekend.
100%. Yeah, I agree with that. I think you nailed it right there, right? If he doesn't ball out, nobody's going to be really interested in Sam Darnold. If he balls out, he might get some interest, but is he going to be a starter somewhere? We don't know, right? I think that's your point. And so I think Darnold likely ends up back here, just given he only has one game to kind of showcase himself. And if he doesn't showcase himself, he's probably back here. So
yeah, I mean, that's the best option.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, this is one of those years. Like last year was a year where, and me and Ali have talked about it. Last year, we think that San Francisco should have won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No debate from me here.
My dad, as Ali has been able to see all over the internet, my dad thinks San Francisco win the Super Bowl every year. But they should have won last year. They had an injured quarterback. It would have been a Cinderella story, and I think that they have the best chance to win this year. I don't think anyone other than Baltimore has shown their ability to outclass or outmatch San Francisco in sheer brutality on a football field. And the physicality level that comes from that style of play and from that intensity is something that a lot of teams cannot match. And that isn't saying that the guys aren't physical. I'm not saying that the guys didn't earn their way to the NFL, but there's a lackadaisical effort when it comes to a lot of pro sports. You don't see that on teams like Baltimore, and you don't see that on teams like San Francisco. And I really think that if the team's going to try to step up and beat San Francisco, they're not going to do any of that lackadaisical stuff. They're going to go out there and they're going to give it their all. They're going to see the hardest hits, the fastest guys. People are going to be cramping, and that's just football. And it also depends on where they're at too. I know playing a game in cold Baltimore in January is a lot different than playing a game in sunny San Francisco. Good thing for San Francisco, they don't have to worry about playing Baltimore unless they make it to the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Yep.
Yep.
And honestly, I don't think there's a team in the NFC that really scares me. Like I'm like, oh man, if we play Philly, we're screwed again. Or if we play Dallas, we're screwed. I think we can take any of these teams out of the NFC. It's Baltimore is the only team based on what we saw in that Monday Night Football game that kind of scares me, right? Oh God, if we have to play Baltimore in the Super Bowl again, thinking back, to the last Super Bowl we lost to them. Oh God, I'd hate to lose another one to Baltimore, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I didn't want to lose the first one to Baltimore.
Yeah, I know. It'd just make it 10 times worse to lose the second one to Baltimore.
Yeah, and I'm going to say it, and I make bold predictions every week, but I think that the only team in the NFC, and people can shout me down for this, but the only team that's scary in the NFC is not going to the playoffs. And that's the Chicago Bears. They figured out how to play football. It took them long enough. Their quarterbacks figured out how to not turn the ball over and how to make the most effective use of his legs and his arm. He's not afraid of the deep ball. And the defense, we love defense over here. Chicago Bears defense has risen 11 spots since week 9. They have the most interceptions in the league with 21 plus. And I think that that's all San Francisco would have to worry about. And guess what? They're not going to have to see the Bears because the Bears aren't making the playoffs. So you're not the Chicago. No team in the NFC is having a stretch. like the Chicago Bears have had. And we can say, what about the Eagles? Well, they're on a 4-game slide, four out of
Yep.
five. What about Dallas? Dallas can't beat anybody if they're not at home.
Yep.
Dallas can't beat a soul if they're not at home. So who's left? Who is left in the NFC? Seattle.
No. Nope. We're not scared of them.
Seattle's not
Lions,
going to challenge San Francisco.
Lions, Bucks, Saints. Not scared of any of them.
What? The Lions. The Lions are. I know Ali will laugh because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's a team in Chicago called the Lions, right? And because of how terrible they have been over the years, we have nicknamed them the Leons. Roar. You know, you remember that character from back in the day in Heavens to Murgatroyd? Yeah, that's the Detroit Lions,
The
the
Detroit
Detroit
Lions.
Leons, the Detroit. Oh, okay, there you go. You're back. You're back. I don't know if we
Hanging
caught
rock.
that, but I'll say it again. The Detroit Lions almost lost to the Bears. They were down 2 scores with under 4 minutes left in the game, and the Bears coaching staff let that one go. But 2 weeks later, the Bears fixed it and blew them out.
Yeah.
And then they've blown out everyone since. So that's something that other teams don't have. The Lions are not scary. When you get blown out by the Bears and almost beat 2 weeks before that, like we'd be having a completely different story or a completely different conversation if the Lions wouldn't have eked out a win against the Bears a couple of weeks ago. And we would have, if they would have got swept completely by the Bears, they wouldn't even be talking about the Lions right now. The Lions will have a lower seed, and on top of it, no one will be afraid of them. I'm telling you guys, it's a one-man race, and it's
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco. The only way that San Francisco loses is if San Francisco beats San Francisco.
100%. 100%. I think that's exactly right, man. If San Francisco makes stupid mistakes, turns over the ball, that's the only way they're losing any of these games. Like if they just
Yeah.
flat out do something stupid in any of these games.
So question though. So now let me also talk about kind of some more kind of headlines. Obviously, Eric Armstead is still out for the plantar fasciitis. They said they're working through kind of getting him back. Dante Whitner, who's on that 2012 team, we're talking about the Ravens when they beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl, right? Dante Whitner was part of that team. Said that Eric Armstead is the key, to this defense. We saw, Sulman, you and I saw firsthand when we went to Levi's on Monday night against Baltimore, how susceptible the defense is without Eric Armstead, kind of shoring up that front four. Without Armstead, do you feel a little bit of fear kind of going up against some of these teams, especially from like Booby Dixon said, like Detroit, who has like a Jameer Gibbs and has like a potent run game and a very good offensive line?
Not really. I mean, I think Armstead should, he's been resting, he's been trying to heal this up. Obviously, that's an issue that doesn't go away. That's the kind of an injury that kind of keeps nagging. So I think he'll definitely come back in the playoffs. That's what he's been saving himself for. So I think Armstead will be back. But even without Armstead, I think, the guys they picked up, Sebastian Day, he's not too bad. They have kind of role players that can kind of fill in and kind of give them somewhat of what Armstead does. And I think I think the first few games were an adjustment, trying to learn how to not have Armstead in there. And I think they've kind of learned that now. So obviously the Baltimore game we saw, that was more Lamar gashing us than anyone else, right?
Correct.
So that's a
Lamar
little hard.
Jackson.
Yeah, Lamar. I mean, you're not going to stop that man. So Armstead, no
No,
Armstead.
once those types of guys, I'll put it this way. Last week we saw, and I know this is going to stick in you guys' chest just a little bit, but last week we saw a dynamic player put his team on his back and beat a juggernaut
Yeah.
in Kyler Murray. And I got to say, there's about 4 or 5 guys with similar play styles who are, and this is nothing against Kyler Murray, they're just better than you, bro. Like they're just better than you. Um, I think Kyler Murray is more on the same level as Dak Prescott than he is with Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts or Tua Tagovailoa or even Patrick Mahomes or even though no one wants to agree, Justin Fields. Like they're like we said in the show last week, you can't teach size, and that's that is a frog in the throat, so to say, of many an athlete is the fact that no matter how good you might think you are, no matter how fundamental you might be, you can't teach size. And in sports, forever, size has been a contributing factor. And no one's going to be bigger than San Francisco's offensive line. No one's going to be tougher. I watched C-Mac walk through the line because they parted the Red Sea for him like no other team does for their running backs. And
I think the offensive line for San Francisco is a little bit kind of unique because you do have Trent and Banks on one side, but then the right side and the center, in my opinion, is still kind of average. And the reason I say that is because they're more mobile. They're not really true traditional hogs up front. You know, guys who are like run stoppers, pass blockers, but they're able to shift and move, and that works for Kyle's schemes, right? Because obviously those offensive schemes of
100%. Yep.
counters and sweeps,
yes,
and So I think it's
like
interesting. Yeah,
look at those holes, bro. Look
They
at the
create big
holes.
holes, big
yeah, they
holes.
do. They
And
do
like
absolutely. And
C-Mac
so
walked through untouched.
that's my next question. Okay, I mean, and let me ask you, Sulman, because you were at the game too. If Kyle kept committed to the run and didn't get away from it, because you saw how C-Mac was gashing them, and it was 13-12 with the 3 picks heading to halftime. If he stuck with the run, do you think the outcome would have been any different?
100%, man. I think maybe Kyle got a little too ahead of himself there in the play calling in the second half, but
Mhm.
I think he just keep feeding CMC the ball, right? See what happens. See what happens. Run down the clock. See what happens. He was gashing them, and they were starting to create big holes against that Ravens D, right? And that's a tough defense to create holes against. So I think obviously he got a little cute with some of those passes, that like fake screen back and then it gets tipped and then
Yep.
intercepted, right? Like that was the killer. That was the one that broke the camel's back right there.
Yeah.
I
And
got to
then
triple down though on the statement that I made last week and the week beforehand. So it's the third time I'm going to say it. I truly believe that San Francisco didn't need to win that game as much as the Ravens need to win that game.
100%. Yeah, that's
And
100%
I
true.
don't think that I think that was the biggest contributing factor that the Ravens needed to win that game a whole lot more than San Francisco did. And I think that it was simply just an in-season game where San Francisco got a look, and this is to back you guys up. So it's not in strict opposition to what you guys have said. And I said this a couple of days ago. I'll say it again. The fact that Shanahan was calling plays that they have not run all year let me know one thing. Shanahan thinks that the Ravens are the premier team in the American Football Conference. He thinks that they are, and because he thinks they are, he doesn't want to show them anything that they can feel, because nothing beats repetition. And so if he cannot run his regular offense against that team, and they go out and show their best, and they keep up with them, if they get some looks, and we don't have to win this game, have at it. Let the talking heads, us, the other guys, let them talk about the fact that are the 49ers in trouble? No, they're not in trouble at all. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were testing Baltimore, and Baltimore, like any team would, they took it hook, line, and sinker, and they won the game. I think that San Francisco wanted to see what they could get away with
That's a great
against
point.
them.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. Yeah. And it kind of felt like that, right? Like it felt like San Francisco's like, hey, we don't really need this game. We're going to try out new things. Like you kind of felt that energy even in the stadium where it was like the Niners were not like the Ravens felt like they were more pumped for that game. Even in the pregame, you could see like they were
Yeah,
coming out like that. So 100%, that makes a lot of sense.
you have Debo Samuel, and if you have Debo Samuel and C-Mac, right? If you have them both, do you go spread offense
Oh,
on a fourth down?
nope.
The minute that Kyle Shanahan, the minute that Kyle Shanahan went spread offense on a fourth down, let me know that he's not worried about them. He went spread offense on fourth down for a fourth and short where you got C-Mac and Debo Samuel. And I'm not just calling those guys out. They have other running backs that are just as capable, and they proved that last week.
Yep.
When C-Mac got injured, they have just other running backs that fit into their scheme just as well. So I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to be that guy, and I'm going to say, you know what? I think that Kyle Shanahan was testing them out, trying to test his limits, also trying to see what he could get away with in a playoff setting, and see what works and what doesn't. And I think that was for them. It was a tune-up. It was I'm going to hate to say this because people might make me eat my words later, but I'm going to go out on a limb and make the bold prediction and say that to them it was a scrimmage.
Scrimmage. I like that.
That's a great point, man. It kind of felt that way when you look at Shanahan's play calling and look at like how the Niners kind
Yeah,
of came
watch it
out.
again.
Yeah,
Watch
it
it
kind of
again.
felt
Watch
that
it
way.
again through that lens, and then see the way that his play calling is completely different than the other games that they played in.
100%. Yeah.
100%. Let's talk about some more playoff scenarios. Obviously, Baltimore, is the favorite in the AFC, and they're basically now obviously Lamar is the favorite for the MVP. With the number one seed. They're not going to play. They're going to rest their players against the Steelers, but then you also have the Miami and Buffalo. Kind of AFC East championship matchup. Miami's super injured across the board. So I mean, Salman, what do you think? What do you think for the AFC? Who is the kryptonite, if there is any, for Baltimore in the AFC?
I mean, ooh, that's tough. I mean, Kansas City, you can never count them out, right? So if that ends up ever being a matchup there, maybe that's it. Like, I maybe the Bills, maybe like I can't really see it. I feel like Baltimore's gonna walk through the AFC. Like they're just gonna walk through it. But because I don't know, Kansas City's been off all year. They've been look kind of up and down, up and down. Defense is good. Can they stop Lamar? Maybe. That's probably the only team. Maybe the Bills. The Bills defense hasn't been always been great, especially in the playoffs. And I guess Josh Allen is also kind of banged up. So, I just don't see anyone really challenging Baltimore like they should. But I will say if I had to pick one, I would say it's the Chiefs probably.
Yeah, I would actually go with the Bills, and I would actually even go one step further to a divisional opponent, the Browns. Joe Flacco having the career surgeons he had for the string of 300+ yard games, and they locked in that playoff spot, and obviously they beat the Ravens earlier this year. So I mean, with a quarterback like Joe playing who's hot, I mean, he can definitely string together, engineer some drives and some offense that could complement that defense, right? Because that defense would then basically, which is a much in my opinion, the Browns defense is a shred better, or at least on par with Baltimore. When you have Myles Garrett, Defensive Player of the Year candidate, you have obviously the secondary, you have those linebackers. I mean, there's a lot of star players on that defense.
Yep.
So
Yeah. No, I
yeah,
think if they to get into that right situation with Cleveland, right? It's a kind of an ugly game. It's kind of snowing. It's kind of that kind of makes it a little tougher game and maybe puts it in the Brown like makes the Browns a little more challenging than some of the other teams for sure.
imagine Joe Flacco going back to Baltimore to beat the Ravens. And
Wow, what a
yeah,
storyline that would be.
yeah, Joe Flacco going back to Baltimore and beating the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, oh my gosh, that would break everything. Cortez, you're on
Yeah.
mute. Cortez, you're on mute. Yeah, you're on mute, bro.
Still on
You're on
mute.
mute. Yeah, we can't hear you.
You got to unmute. You got to
You're on
unmute.
Oh,
mute.
I was gonna say that would be amazing and a storybook ending for Joe Flacco's career. I think he would retire after that.
Yeah.
But it's been great. I will catch you guys a little bit later. I have to get back to doing the dreaded work stuff.
Yes,
No worries.
sir. I appreciate you,
So
bro.
it's been great. I wish I could be here longer. If you guys want to do it again soon, we can.
Co-host of the most,
Absolutely.
Cortez Branch, aka Soul Reaper 24. Thank you for joining. Okay, let's talk about some fantasy because you got your fantasy championship coming up this weekend. So let's talk about kind of with your fantasy picks, and obviously we have roughly 10 minutes left. So let's talk about it. Who are your performers, your key performers, and also let's talk about kind of what you're expecting. Do you have any dogs in the fight on the San Francisco 49ers game? And
Ooh, I did. I did.
yeah.
I did. I had Brock Purdy and I had Ayuk. So I'm benching both those guys in week 18.
Okay.
I don't know why I'm playing in a league where the championship game is week 18, but I am. I've already won 3 other leagues. I'm good. But Brock Purdy and Ayuk, I took that stack. Those are my guys. So they're gonna probably sit out. I'm lucky that CeeDee Lamb is still gonna play.
Yes, sir.
So I got CeeDee Lamb on that squad. So I'm gonna pick up some, I'm gonna pick up some guys. I'm probably gonna start Jordan Mason probably. So I'm gonna hope he gashes that practice squad Rams defense and gets me that championship. That's what I'm thinking of.
Booby said something interesting. He said that Eli Mitchell and Jordan Mason are better goal line backs than Christian McCaffrey. What do you think about that? Because the body is a little bit bigger and it's a little bit obviously situationally the
Ooh,
goal line is a little bit tighter and he doesn't view Christian McCaffrey as like a true goal line back. Do you agree with that?
I can see that. I can
Yeah,
see that just because CMC is so versatile.
yeah,
He doesn't. I mean, but CMC, if he wants to put his shoulder into you and go, he can.
yeah.
I just think Mitchell and Mason, they just hit the hole a little quicker, right? So on goal line, when you got to just hit that hole, just get in there and just power through. That's what they do. CMC doesn't do that always. But I think Mason and Mitchell are both kind of those kind of backs that can just get into that hole and just power through. Um, So I think I can see that. But if you want a guy carrying it on like 3rd and 1, I mean, everyone knows the ball's going to CMC at that point, right?
Right.
But versus if Mitchell and Mason are in, you can maybe expect a play action, right? So I think there's like a variety of things that go into that. Um, but I'd still say, hey, it's 4th and 1. You gotta get a touchdown. Give it to CMC. Don't put Eli Mitchell or Jordan Mason in the
Yeah.
game. Just give it to CMC. Just do it. Don't make the same mistakes we've made.
The
So
reason I'm asking the question is because you see how Raheem Mostert's playing Miami. Some Niners fans said, "Oh, look at that. We would have kept him. We would have had a better running back for cheaper. Less capital that they sacrificed for CMC. Less for if they
but look at
kept Raheem."
Mostert. He's always hurt. So
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
hurt
I mean,
again.
this is
He's hurt in the playoffs again. What are you gonna do
yeah,
at that time? So
exactly.
yeah.
I mean, I'm
Anyways,
happy. Yep.
yeah, no. Anyways, I was gonna say, let's wrap up. I gotta jump in a
Oh,
minute.
absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's wrap this up. All right, everyone. So, you can tune in to our show next week. Obviously, we're going to talk about the playoff preview more in detail. Week 18 NFL regular season wrap up this Sunday. Follow Sulman at HuckU2. Follow us at DDOG Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Thank you all for tuning in. To my co-host, Sulman, thank you for joining today. Everyone, have a
Pleasure.
safe weekend.
Peace, man.